50 cents worth of chemicals from two completely different aisles of a hardware store can loosen a bolt that a $15 can of name brand penetrating spray can't touch. Not because the spray is fake, because of what's actually inside that can and what isn't. Picture a bolt that's been sitting in cast iron for 30 or 40 years, soaking up moisture every humid summer and every freeze-thaw winter. It isn't just stuck the way a stiff door hinge is stuck. At a microscopic level, the steel and the iron around it have effectively become one piece of metal, welded together by rust instead of heat. You put a breaker bar on it, you lean into it with everything you've got, and instead of the bolt turning, it just snaps clean off. Now you're drilling out a broken stud in the dark, which is a much worse afternoon than the one you planned. So you do what most people do. You drive to the auto parts store, grab a tall can of penetrating oil, spray it on, wait 10 minutes, and try again. Half the time, nothing happens, or the bolt still shears. It's worth asking why a product built and marketed specifically for this job so often just doesn't deliver. Part of the answer is sitting right there on the ingredient label, if you bother to read it. A meaningful chunk of what's in that can is propellant, the compressed gas that pushes the liquid out of the nozzle. It's not doing anything to the rust, it's just plumbing. Of what's left, most of it tends to be a light, fast evaporating mineral spirit. It's cheap, it's stable in a spray can, and it flashes off into the air within minutes of hitting the metal. The actual long chain lubricating oil, the part that would theoretically stay behind and do the slow work of soaking into the joint, is often a small fraction of the total formula. It's less a conspiracy and more a packaging problem. A genuinely aggressive, low-surface tension solvent tends to be hard on rubber seals and plastic dip tubes, which is a real liability for a company shipping millions of pressurized cans through hot warehouses for 2 years at a stretch. So formulas get tuned towards stability and shelf life first, and penetrating power second. That's a reasonable business decision for the manufacturer. It's just not necessarily the decision that gets your bolt out. Here's the part that's actually interesting, though. The physics of what's happening inside that thread, and why some fluids get past it and others don't. When iron rusts, it doesn't just discolor. Iron oxide takes up noticeably more physical space than the metal it replaced. Inside a threaded joint that was machined to tolerances measured in thousandths of an inch, that expanding rust has nowhere to go. It packs itself into the gap between the threads under real pressure, turning what was a smooth mechanical fit into something closer to a lock stuffed with gravel. Twist on that bolt and you're not fighting friction anymore. You're fighting a jammed, gritty wedge that transmits torque straight down the shaft until the steel itself gives out first. To beat that, a fluid has to do two things a typical spray can struggle with: get in fast and leave something behind that actually lubricates. That's the gap a home mixed fluid can fill, and it's not some forgotten secret formula. It's two things you can buy at any hardware store, combined in a way most people just never think to try. Take a gallon of plain acetone and a quart of ordinary automatic transmission fluid, nothing exotic. The cheapest conventional ATF on the shelf works fine, and mix them roughly 1-to-1 in a metal or glass container. That's the whole recipe. What you get is often described by home mechanics and a few independent tests floating around online as noticeably more effective at freeing seized fasteners than most off-the-shelf sprays, though it's worth treating any specific twice as good number with some skepticism, since testing conditions vary a lot from one rusted bolt to the next. The way it works comes down to two very different jobs, handled by two very different liquids. Acetone by itself is nearly useless as a lubricant. It evaporates almost instantly and leaves nothing behind. But it has extremely low surface tension, which means instead of beating up on a surface the way water does on a waxed hood, it spreads flat and wicks into the tiniest cracks it can find. ATF, on the other hand, is built to survive punishing conditions inside a transmission: high pressure, constant friction, extreme heat, which means it's loaded with boundary lubricants and detergents that are genuinely good at clinging to metal and breaking down grime. Its problem is that at room temperature, it's thick, and thick fluid doesn't want to crawl into a microscopic, rust-choked gap on its own. Mix them together, and the acetone temporarily thins the ATF out, dragging it down into cracks it could never reach by itself. Once it's in there, the acetone does what acetone always does. It evaporates, disappearing back into the air within a day or so. What's left behind is the ATF, now sitting exactly where you need it, deep inside the thread, doing the slow detergent work of breaking down the rust bond from the inside. This is also why the mix works even on bolts pointing straight down, where gravity should just make everything drip onto the floor. Once the acetone strips away the surface tension, capillary action takes over, the same basic force that pulls water up through the trunk of a tree against gravity, or pulls fuel up a lantern wick. Narrow, cracked, porous rust deposits are exactly the kind of structure that pulls liquid upward through capillary action, so the thinned ATF climbs into the joint regardless of which way the bolt is facing. If you want to try this yourself, a few practical notes matter more than people expect. Don't store the mix in a cheap plastic spray bottle. Acetone is aggressive enough towards certain plastics and rubber seals that it can soften a bottle's dip tube or trigger mechanism over time. A glass jar with a metal lid, or an old-fashioned metal oil can, holds up fine. Mix it fresh rather than storing it long term, since acetone and oil will slowly separate if left sitting, and give it a good shake before each use. Apply it sparingly. A few drops directly on the exposed thread is plenty, since the whole point is capillary action doing the work, not brute volume. Then do the one thing that's hardest for most people: leave it alone. This isn't an instant fix. Give it several hours, ideally overnight, reapply, and give it more time again if the bolt is badly seized. Chemistry working its way through a microscopic rust structure just isn't fast, no matter what a 10-minute product label promises. When you do go back to it, there's one small trick worth knowing. Try tightening the bolt slightly before you try to loosen it. That small movement in the opposite direction can crack the rust bond in the direction it was originally seated, which often makes the actual loosening far easier and much less likely to snap the bolt. A couple of honest caveats. Acetone is flammable, and the fumes aren't something you want to breathe in a closed garage, so keep the area ventilated and away from open flame or sparks. This mix also isn't magic. A bolt that's corroded badly enough or made of a metal. This combination doesn't suit, may still need heat, an extraction tool, or a machine shop. Treat it as a genuinely useful trick worth trying before you reach for the drill, not a guarantee. At the end of the day, it's a good reminder that the fanciest looking retail product isn't always the most effective one for the job. Sometimes the better answer, really, is sitting in two completely unrelated aisles of the same store, waiting for someone curious enough to combine them. That's this one from Secret Lab.